President Zelensky. Joining me now to talk about this and much more is Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu, who serves on the House Judiciary and House Foreign Affairs committees. Congressman Lieu, thanks so much for joining us. So this is Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, from the transcript, testifying about a conversation he had with Ambassador Sondland regarding the quote-unquote deliverables, what Ukraine needed to do in order to get this meeting. Question: do you understand how he came to believe that this deliverable was necessary? Answer: so I heard him say that this is Sondland. I heard Sondland say that this had been coordinated with White House Chief of Staff Mr. Mick Mulvaney. Question: what did Sondland say about that? Answer: Vindman: Sondland just said that he had had a conversation with Mr. Mulvaney, and this is what was required in order for the Ukrainians to get a meeting. Question: did he explain what the investigations were that were needed? Vindman: he talked about the investigations, about the 2016 elections, and an investigation into the Bidens and Burisma. Now, Mulvaney today defied the subpoena from the three committees, including the one you're on, subpoena to come in and talk to the impeachment inquiry. Your committee is not challenging his defiance of the subpoena and not taking it to court. Why not? Isn't Mulvaney's testimony essential?
Thank you, Jake, for that question. All these witnesses that we have seen corroborate the exact same narrative, which is that Donald Trump solicited foreign interference in our elections. He did it for his own personal political gain at the expense of U.S. national security. We would love to have Mick Mulvaney, but we don't need him because we have Lieutenant Colonel Vindman saying what happened. We have Fiona Hill saying what happened. We have George Kent. We have Ambassador Taylor. Enough people have all corroborated the exact same story that we have enough witnesses to go forward.
So the three people that you have publicly testifying next week are Bill Taylor, the top ambassador, the top diplomat in Ukraine right now for the U.S., George Kent, who's a State Department official, and the former ambassador, Masha Yovanovitch. None of them talked to President Trump about this Ukraine scandal. Wouldn't it be good to have somebody, whether Ambassador Sondland or Rudy Giuliani or Mick Mulvaney, somebody who had actually talked to Trump about this?
This is just the first week of public hearings. We're going to have more. If you look at the witness depositions, Sondland talked directly to the president a number of times. But beyond that, we have the actual call record of July 25th between Donald Trump and Zelensky. Right after the Ukrainian leader talks about military aid, Donald Trump immediately asked for a favor, though. And when you read through the rest of the transcript, it's investigations into the DNC as well as the Bidens. So we already know there is no daylight between any of these policies that are being executed by Giuliani and Mulvaney and Donald Trump. They're saying the exact same thing.
Is Sondland, you said that the next week is just the first week of hearings. Are you going to call Sondland to testify publicly?
That remains to be seen, but with his new addendum to his testimony, it is pretty compelling because with his new addendum, he basically explicitly says there was a quid pro quo between the Trump administration and the Ukrainians. You can call this extortion, you can call it bribery. It's all the same thing, where basically the president used his powers to freeze military aid, to dangle a critical meeting between the White House and the Ukrainian leader in exchange for the launching of two bogus investigations.
But Sondland does admit in his addendum that the meeting would only come in exchange for investigations, although he doesn't use the term extortion or bribery or quid pro quo. John Bolton's lawyer said today that his client, that Mr. Bolton, the former National Security Advisor, has significant insights into matters involved in the impeachment inquiry, but that Bolton will not testify until a court resolves whether or not he has to comply with the subpoena. Should you, Democrats leading the inquiry, wait until you can have Bolton testify? It sounds like he knows a lot.
Right. So I'm a former prosecutor, and I would love to track down every single lead, every single witness. But in this case, all the damning evidence really came out pretty early. We have the summarized call transcript. We have Ambassador Volker's text messages that were released that show U.S. diplomats understood about this quid pro quo. We know that Donald Trump froze critical security aid to Ukraine. Essentially, this is a lot of undisputed facts. So we'd love to have John Bolton come in. If he is going to wait for a court order, that might take months and months, and we're not going to wait months and months.
Is it your belief, sir, that the rough transcript that has of the conversation between Trump and Zelensky, that's all you need in terms of first-hand quid pro quo evidence, that speaks for itself?
That is not all we need. It is certainly part of the evidence. This was a months-long pressure campaign by Donald Trump to try to get the Ukrainians to launch these two investigations into the Bidens and the DNC. So we have the transcript where he specifically mentions these two investigations. Those are the president's own words. And then we have all this testimony from State Department officials, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, and others who all corroborate that exact same story, that the Trump administration was trying to get Ukraine to launch these two investigations, and they did it by withholding military aid and by dangling this important meeting with Zelensky.
Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu of California, thank you so much for your time, sir. We appreciate it. Coming up, a damning portrait of a presidency in chaos and what would have been an incredible show of strength. Senior administration officials